guys are watching NFL Daily. I am Tom Downey here with our live mailbag from Tuesday's show. From Lore, will Leonard, Floyd, and Yetur Gross-Matos be ready for week 1 of the NFL regular season? I hope so for the 49ers' sake. That is a team that they kind of overhauled their non-Nick Bosa off defensive line. Obviously, Javon Hargrave's still there. Malik Collins comes into town. Leonard Floyd, Yetur Gross-Matos. Jordan Elliott at DT along with Hargrave. It's a different group. It is going to be a penetrating group. I love Nick Bosa. So they need somebody opposite them at edge rusher. Overall, injury-wise, I'm not overly concerned, but we'll certainly know more on Wednesday and throughout the week. From you, Green. Is this Marshall Green's cousin, you think? Could the Patriots upset the Bengals? Could? Yes. Am I going to bet on them to do so? No. The Bengals, I think, are a better football team at every level. There are probably some defensive areas they're not better. Maybe running back with Ramondre Stevenson gives them the edge, but I don't know. Joe Burrow versus Jacoby Brissett. Give me Joe Burrow. That defense does not have Christian Barmore. The Patriots, I don't mind the Patriots over on their win total, but on the road, week 1, I very much think it is a Bengals win. Even if it's just a money line win and not like a full-on they cover, I think the Bengals win that game. I'd be surprised if they lost. It would truly be an upset. From Caleb King, if the Raiders are bad, could they fire sale Davante Adams? A lot of this comes down to the Raiders' long-term plans because there is a decision to be made next offseason with Davante Adams. With the way his contract is set up, they're not going to keep him as is. Doesn't make any sense. They will either pay him and extend him, or they're going to move on via release or trade. And release might make more sense given the contract and age and everything there. If they're really bad, I could see them trading away Adams. I could see Adams saying, I don't want to be here anymore. Because does Adams want to sit here with a young QB and rebuild? Did you know the Jets are going to be calling? You know they're going to. So it'll be a rumor. But I want to see how the Jets play out. Because if there is a plan to get a different quarterback in 2025, they would benefit from having Davante Adams. So predictions. I know my answer, but I want to hear your guys' too. Sorry, Mitch. Will the Raiders make the playoffs? Y for yes, N for no. It is the pinned comment on today's show. If that ad comes on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. From Noah Turner, are you a Bryce Young believer? What do we call someone who's not a truther, not a hater, somewhere in the middle, and probably leaning a little bit more towards the truther side? I guess that would semi-believer? I think it was a really bad situation last year in Carolina. I think it's better this year. I still worry if it's going to be better enough with the offensive line, receiving core. Hopefully Dave Canales is better. He's had some good success several years in a row, kind of rehabbing some quarterbacks in Seattle and in Tampa. I like the talent. Love to come out of Alabama. I think it was a really bad situation year 1 in Carolina. So at minimum, I am open to waiting another year and seeing how it all plays out. But it's a short shelf life for picks. You got to prove it quickly or you're going to get moved on from. I think he's got this year and next year, and then it's go time. From you, Green, do you pay Dak or just draft the top QB in the draft and invest in the team? I think either is a valid plan for Dallas. My biggest problem is they didn't do either when they should have. You could have paid Dak this offseason, brought down his cap hit, and invested more in the team and not just do bargain bin free agency shopping like you always do. Instead, they didn't pay Dak Prescott, didn't pay CeeDee Lamb. If they do pay Dak, as of filming Tuesday they have not, that's going to free up to $20 million in cap if they want to. It's like $30 million they could have spent. They chose not to and are going to roll over into next year when they have massive amounts of cap space, by the way. The other option is to draft that top QB. But you're not going to move on from Dak right now. So you're going to be picking in the 20s again. What quarterback are you going to get in the 20s that's good? That you think is a real franchise guy? That guy's going to go top 5, whoever it ends up being. So you kind of missed your window to tank properly What would end up happening is if you lose Dak for a third-round comp pick, you can't spend money in free agency really because you're going to miss on that comp pick. That'd be a big deal. You can't sacrifice that. And you're going to be picking in the 20s with no quarterback option, and you're delaying your proper rebuild by a year. The path has been, the process has been garbage for the Dallas Cowboys. At this point, the best path probably is to pay him. But you also still are not maximizing that either way. It's not a fun spot to be for Dallas because of their own self-inflicted mistakes. Today's show is made possible by PrizePicks. They are America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Over 5 million active members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, it's just you against the numbers. More or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch those winnings roll in. One of the coolest things PrizePicks is doing this year is one Caleb Williams passing yard gets you one win on PrizePicks every week in the month of September. It's a freebie. So I'm pairing Caleb Williams more than a half passing yard getting to 1. CeeDee Lamb more than receiving yards. Dak Prescott more than passing yards. I normally do the flex play, which means you can get 2 out of 3 right and still win. When I get the freebie, I go for the power play. That gets me the most amount back. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play 5. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly when you play 5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. SM, what ends up happening with the Haason Reddick situation? At some point, he shows up. I don't see a trade happening. I think the Jets are very much entrenched in the sunken costs they've committed to Haason Reddick, which not even be the fallacy version. It might just be have to play it. Because that GM is kind of on the hot seat. Like, if they don't win games, the GM head coach might be gone. You can't trade Reddick away for nothing and then be like, oh, we're fine. That's how the owner gets pissed at you, right? So I think they will play hardball. Reddick eventually shows up, maybe after week 1, who knows, and probably doesn't play as well as he would have had he shown up on time. Aiden Max, can the Steelers trade for Courtland Sutton? If we believe the report that the Broncos rejected a third-round pick in exchange for Sutton, then no. If I'm Pittsburgh, I'm not going to trade away my second-round pick. Like, I think they're excited about the Russell Wilson-Justin Fields combo. That's fine. When you don't know you have your franchise QB, and you might need one in next year's draft, keep those draft assets. You might need them to move up or trade them for other things. So it's a fun idea. We can revisit if Denver's bad at the trade deadline, but I also think Denver kind of needs Courtland Sutton to help Bo Nix grow. You don't want to have it's a Bryce Young conversation, right? You don't want to be in a spot where there's no good receivers for your first-round pick of QB. That's bad. That's just bad. A bad job by your front office. So, player who you think gets traded. There will be somebody around the deadline. Name who you think that player ends up being. Bonus points if you name multiple players for me in the comments of today's show. Food review. There's always an overhyped team that just seems to disappoint. What is your team? It's a good question. I think it's normally this often falls into the everyone buys that the jump is coming and then it doesn't come. Sometimes it comes a year later. 2 teams I want to mention, and I do believe in them, but if we're trying to identify this spot, what if that 9-game, 10-game, half-season sample size from Jordan Love was a flash in the pan? It's a small sample size. Now, I believe in him, and I think he figured some stuff out, but year 2 is normally harder for a QB. I think that applies to Jordan Love. Also kind of applies to C.J. Stroud. I believe in both those teams. I'll put them in my playoff predictions, but I think there's some real questions there. Hype side, always got to put Dallas in that conversation, right? Always have to, especially come January. Christian Navarro, how will the Bills' offense be like not having both receivers, Gabe Davis, Stephon Diggs, and Mitch Morse? It's a good question. I think they'll be okay on the offensive line. Connor McGovern has played center a little bit in Dallas I'm a little worried about David Edwards plugging in there. We'll see how that goes. The receiving core is going to be super different. I think Keon Coleman's a fun fit for what Josh Allen can do. I think Khalil Shakir is going to be heavily involved in slot receiver. Here's my issue. Dalton Kincaid, Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel. I'd argue all three of those guys are best out of the slot. Is Matt Collins going to be this sacrificial X receiver? Like, he'll play a lot because he can block. I think it's going to be a different offense. I think it will still lean heavily on Josh Allen making plays. Best thing that can happen is a massive breakout season from Keon Coleman as a first-year player. Now, if you want to be a part of these NFL mailbags, hit that sub button. We're live on Tuesdays. You want to join them, got to sub. It's that simple. From CISO Sporty, will the Falcons lift expectations? I almost put them on the other one. I think it's very possible because I think the expectations for Atlanta are just to make the postseason. In the NFC South, that's very doable. Now, I think that defense has some question marks. I don't like the way how they handled the quarterback stuff this offseason. But if the expectations are playoffs, yes, they absolutely can hit that. It's not that high of a bar. Skylar Jones, what team that made the playoffs last year misses it this year? There's always going to be multiple. That happens every year, and there's always like wow, didn't see that one coming, and then we're haters if we try to pick that one, which is fair, frankly. I think you look at the AFC North, Bengals didn't make it last year. If they're healthy, they're going to make it, so pick one of Pittsburgh and Cleveland. AFC East, boy, it seems like the Jets might have their chances this year, so probably pick one of Buffalo or Miami. NFC, I'm a little bit worried about the Rams. I think they exceeded expectations last year. Could they come back down to earth a little bit? And probably, I would not be shocked if one of Dallas or Philadelphia did not make it. The NFC's not that good, and I think that gives those teams some help there, but there's real questions around both of those squads. So I want you to name a good NFL team, kind of a surprise pick to an extent, who you think will miss the playoffs this year. Let me know in the comments of today's show. Like this question from SM. Is Brady going to lose his ownership? NFL did the right thing restricting him. I agree. If you don't know what's going on, Brady has a deal in place to buy some of the Raiders from Mark Davis, and he also wants to do his Fox Sports broadcasting stuff. Well, turns out other NFL owners do not want the guy who does the broadcasting, who gets to be in all these personnel meetings, all these interview stuff, have really good insider info, to also own an NFL franchise. That's a pretty big conflict of interest. So he has to pick one. And he probably will hold off on the ownership until he's done doing the broadcasting stuff, assuming he's good at the broadcasting stuff. He may or may not be. Witten was terrible. Romo was good. Romo kind of fell off. It's not quite 1-to-1. Especially if Brady keeps going old man guy, which I'm a little bit worried about him doing a lot of, just like back in my day. So right now, I don't think he's got the ownership. And I think you're right, SM. That is the only viable move that the NFL could have made. They had to do it. You can't let a part-time owner also be involved in team meetings and interview stuff. Like that's not okay. Even Dog, Vikings trade for John Metchie. Curious what happens in Houston. And they moved on from Noah Brown. I think that was probably their move. I think they want to try to buy some time for Metchie, but it might be a tough path to playing time. Minnesota is very light on draft picks, though. They probably can't do many trades. Ecuador man AOG, our last one here, is Kevin King an option for the Cowboys? If you'd asked me this, and we probably did talk about it, 2 years ago, maybe. I kind of think it's a red flag that Kevin King has kind of bounced around. He did get on a practice squad this year, which he skipped the 2022 season. He skipped the 2023 season. Now he's on the Falcons practice squad. So I don't think anyone wants to gamble on that for an active roster spot because there's so much unknown. That does have ties to Mike McCarthy. If he were healthy, different conversation. But right now, or if he'd been healthy previously, but I think right now, probably not.